Om Shanti. Today I'd like to talk about the subject of the identity crisis, basically that the human being is in at the present time, so that because everything is body conscious or role conscious, everything that's seen as valuable, seen as any value, is connected to the physical body and the external. It's a bit like making the temple and everything surrounding the temple very beautiful, but having no consideration for the idol that dwells within. And it's almost like having a very ugly idol in the temple, and not because the idol is ugly, but because it's not being given any, it's not being cleaned, being looked after, being made to look beautiful again. So human beings basically swapped inner beauty for outer beauty, and of course this is a very expensive thing in which is a basically never-ending journey that the person goes on towards a complete state of sorrow and deprivation of all morals, basically, and the soul becomes very degraded, not because it's a bad being, it's a bad person, or personality is a better word, because people always relate to the person, which includes the physical body. And of course this mask that I'm wearing, it only reflects how I feel inside. So obviously if it's an unhappy soul, then that will reflect on the facial features. So this physical mask is just my features, if you like. They're physical features, but the one that's displaying those feelings through the features is here as a being of light, the soul. And of course you've got many problems that come from self-identification with the body, because there's what you own, and what you own will own you, it will control you, and it will manipulate you, and you will even have the fear of loss when you haven't even lost it. So all this has wrecked the inner peace, really, that's meant to happen, but it's an expensive mistake we make because it's so expensive. And so whereby the security is here within the self, within the qualities and the qualifications of our own abilities. The self-belief maneuvers itself to the outside, whereas self-belief is reliant on something else or someone else. And the problem with this is that because it is so expensive, you know, however many times you use the word I, the I will become the I of the body rather than the I of the soul. And this is a corrective measurement, or a corrective direction that we follow, that whenever we say the word I, we think of I, the soul, because we've been programmed into being I, the body that's dying every moment, deteriorating every second of our human life. And you can appreciate the I of the body interferes with the I of the soul by saying, I am a Christian, I am a Hindu, I am a Muslim, I am white, I am black, I have blonde hair, I have brunette hair, I have no hair. And it interferes and formulates a programming further and further, deeper and deeper into the soul. So a lifelong of eyes, the eye of the body, it deteriorates the virtues, makes the self more insecure. So then when I say that I'm reliant on this, I wouldn't be aware of who's saying this. I'd be aware that I, the person, the name and form of the body. And of course this is taught throughout the whole world. It's the same teachings. Any centre that you go to in the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University, or Raja Yoga as we like to call it as well, which is the sovereignty over your own self. You will be taught the same thing worldwide. No one really changes the teachings, the original teachings. But what happens is that first a person comes for an hour, maybe on a Monday, and learns that they're a soul. And they basically say, what's next? Which is, human nature to be curious. But curiosity has been created because of the manoeuvring away from the true self, because you're not really curious about anything once you're who you are and what you are. You're only curious about other things when you're not who you are and what you are. And that goes in many ways. The expansive manoeuvrability that body consciousness creates, because it can be, you don't know what your husband's thinking or your wife's thinking or your children are thinking. You want to know how hurt they are and what they're going through. And the information that you get will be read according to your own feelings. So if you've developed a habit to worry and a habit to doubt the best things can happen, will happen, and you see the glass of water half empty rather than half full, because your own feelings interfere with what they might be thinking. Do they think good of me? Do they think bad of me? Do they like me? Do they dislike me? And all this is because of the I of the body. And you'll never change it, no matter how much you learn about external philosophies. You'll never change the I of the body unless you change it to the I of the soul, because it's expansive. So whenever I learn something, it will expand further with the ego of the body. So although people like to learn and like to study, if it's not about yourself, then it will be connected to, in some way, shape or form, the ego. Even we've seen great gurus with great power actually we start to see chinks in their armour because they become dependent on their disciples. And these disciples shouldn't go there, they should stay here. And that means that guru or those gurus, and I'm not saying this is the case with all gurus, is that guru, particular gurus are actually processing the I of being the guru, which is connected to, it may not even be the name of the body. They might have done away with that name. They might have called themselves a new name, but their form creates the connection with that name. So they're just a person being taken out of their household with their mother and father into giving insights to other people, having disciples. Counting is another aspect of the I of body consciousness, which is based on insecurity, based on sensitivity, based on fear. And the confidence comes from these people love me, they're following me. There's 500, and in a year's time there can be 50 followers, and in another year they might just be the ones that you're actually believing you, but 1 out of 500 could be left, and the I of the body will connect to all those things. I might have shed the name, changed the name to change my image, but I'm still connected to the male, the female, what I believe to be the origin, and that's not the origin. So you get people who come for the first lesson of the course of being the soul, and they think about it. It's information in their stockroom, but in no way, shape or form, ever is it a state of self-realization where the actual consciousness of the self doesn't allow you to be in the consciousness of the body. That's what self-realization is. It starts and it stops something else. So I can't have vanity of the body if I've got self-realization, because my real eyes open. I've realized, so my real eye is open. Sometimes it will open and then it will close again, and that's not self-realization. That's a taste of self-realization. So the whole world is a family, basically a family of human souls playing their role, and you can include the animal kingdom in there, like George Bernard Shaw says. He said, I don't eat animals because animals are my friends, and I don't eat my friends. So obviously this is another state of body consciousness, humans being higher, animals being lower. That will formulate in many other ways, white being higher, black being lower, or black being higher, white being lower. And all the time the ego of the body will make someone attack, and they're attacking because they feel sensitive about what another person is saying. So defensive and offensive mechanisms take place simultaneously. So then when the student of Raj Yoga receives the second lesson of the Supreme Soul, it's a need to know, but it's really, in an ideal world, it would be too soon. They should be spending 7 days at least on realization of considering the self to be an incorporeal soul. Incorporeal means completely bodiless, without the feelings of the body. So you're actually learning to live in that awareness and that state of being. In that state of being, you'd be very much aware of other souls in bodies, not bodies. You'd be very much aware that the part of their roles that are influencing them and making them feel unhappy, whether it be to do with a lack of food, a lack of money, a lack of love, a lack of security of some form. Why else do we become unhappy? Is because our security has been made to feel, for that moment in time, insecure until you get over it. And there's nothing really to get over with soul consciousness, because you're a child of God, you're connected to God, you're connected to human beings in a different way. They're all equal. So your family aren't your favourites anymore. In meditation, you actually forget your family, because while they're remembering you and you're remembering them, we're affecting each other with the insecurity and the ego of the body. Same thing really. Insecurity, the defensive feelings and offensive feelings are all connected to the ego of the body, where I say, I am a politician, I have made the grade, I am I'm not working class anymore, I'm middle class. You get the caste systems in India, and although these have been largely set aside, they're still going on because a person with their ego believes that they're superior or believes that they are inferior and their peers, the Brahmin caste, are higher than they are. So they might live in a state of insecurity purely because living in the feelings of this name and form and its connections. So you can imagine the soul is like the seed of power, the incorporeal state. It comes into this physical body. The body is like the trunk of the tree, and the branches are like comes into the word of my, which is minus, MYNESS, and MINUS, where it's my family and friends, my possessions, my home, and all those things, and my status, and all the things that you've heard, no doubt, if you've been involved or connected to the Brahma Kumaris for so long. But when we move on to the Supreme Soul on the second lesson, which is really before time, because the soul hasn't actually processed fully what soul consciousness is and the effect it has as an incorporeal being living in a corporeal body that's dying second by second, but you're not dying with it. It's dying, but you're not. It's sick, but you're not. You're always healthy in soul consciousness. You're always feeling wealthy in soul consciousness because you're naturally connected to being peaceful. So originally, because the Om wasn't enough, the I am, we had to describe it further by saying Om Shanti. But originally, Om would be enough. But because human beings are so far out of synchronization with their true self, we have to say Om Shanti. Giving you a clear example of that is that when a patient is undergoing a major operation and he has an out-of-body experience because he has a near-death experience, he can see the light of God, feel that unutterable bliss, feel that his body is down there and he's separate to the body, but at no point in time will he feel that this is my Father who's in front of me, because he's not aware of himself as a point like the Supreme Soul. So consequently, he says, I had a wonderful experience. There was such unutterable bliss and such unutterable love coming from this being of light, and I felt so special, so uplifted. Even people have come back into their roles and they've said, I can never worry about my bills anymore. These things are so meaningless. I never worry about my job status or my position that I've got in life, because these things are so meaningless compared to that love that I can never forget. And yet in no point in time will that person who's had that out-of-body experience, even the very next day, will they live on this plane as a male, other than a male or a female or a person that has got this problem with their body. And we say it's my body, we don't say I body, we say my body. So it's definitely separate to ourself. But because of this, even the out-of-body experience, he felt healthy, he felt alive, he felt well. He doesn't feel like he was that sick body, that sick corpse, or that car that's down there, that mortal coil. He felt light, he felt loved, he felt wonderful, he felt supreme in that one's presence. But he was actually, God was enabling him to connect to his presence don't get me wrong, God does have that presence, but so does the soul in its incorporeal divine state. And I only have to say divine to connect, to make you realize that that's inside the soul. The soul should feel that divine love of not needing love, not needing to love anyone or anything, but being the embodiment of love. So all these things have actually been processed because of body consciousness, and you may have left your previous bodies in the last 1,000 years or so. Let's suppose and we had 12 or 13 bodies in that time, but we still carry the depth of body consciousness with us. So therefore it gets deeper every time I live a life of body consciousness. I carry, in a sense, I'm carrying all that heaviness of the roles with me in my sanskaras, which lie in the subconscious mind, which interfere with the way I read things. So if someone says something to me, there may be a misunderstanding and I may need clarification, or I might jump the gun, because this is how much the soul's lived in a body conscious state, purely trying to get happiness back inside of ourselves. When we worship God, we make a nice temple, we put an image, an idol inside, and we're actually trying to get to the perfect idol in the temple, which is the self. The forehead is called the temple. The body is very often related to as, this is your temple, you have to look after it, but people don't know how to look after it in a body conscious state, because they're killing the body, because they're attached to the body. So when it's time to leave this body, it's difficult to leave this body, because I'm losing everything that's connected to this body as well as the body, and I won't know where I'm going. But if I live in a soul conscious state and consider myself to be incorporeal and allow the realization to emerge that this is me and this is not me. This is me as a soul. This is not me. It's not an effort as in someone running a marathon where they've got to build up their fitness and their stamina, and it's hard work. It's an allowing the realization to emerge. So you're actually making space in your thoughts for the awareness to emerge that you are the being of love. So this is very much hitting me in the early morning time. I was thinking that we make an effort to try to accumulate 8 hours of remembrance of God, but in reality is that if I'm who I am, what I am and who I am is completely separate to what I do in my physical life. And if I consider and add weight to that side, this tiny point of infinitesimal light is the I am. This tiny point of infinitesimal light has all my last births, whatever's happened in my past, whatever will happen in my future, as in what body I'll take, wherever I go, it doesn't really matter, but it's all merged. It doesn't matter what role you play. It's not what you do, it's who does it. That's the important aspect. And all these births, the eternal roles that the soul plays, are merged in this tiny point of light. So although I'm playing this role of BK, Brahmakumar, Andrew, who comes from Romford in England, these are all limitations. The Mao, how many years I've been in this knowledge, who cares? It's nothing to do with who I am. It's become part of the role of what I play. And sometimes people carry it in such a wrong way and become expensive. And what happens in the BKs is that you've got people who are processing everything the way that they understand it. So fair enough, everyone's got that right. So some people jump with both feet in the one boat. Some people decide to put one foot in the outside world still and one foot in this world. And as you say, you're in danger of getting split down the middle. And in reality, nearly everyone, apart from the ones that have actually become soul conscious, are doing that anyway, because anyone that shows any kind of bossiness, any kind of attitude, any mood changes are also means that the outside world is affecting the person. And no doubt everyone by now has heard that people have become Brahmakumars or Brahmakumaris, just a label really, just a name to shift you away from the physical, the material, into the spiritual, just another label that has to be left behind because I still have to move from a Brahmin state of consciousness to an angelic form which is unaffected by everything, the five sense organs of the body, the world outside. All I'm doing is revealing myself to myself again. And obviously the Brahmakumar or Brahmakumari can have a certain amount of ego to it. So considering yourself to be a soul, incorporeal, egoless and viceless, that's the order. Incorporeal, egoless and viceless. So I'm getting back to my incorporeal state, which is my true, eternal, immortal, powerful form that's divine like God's. And then as a child of God with all rights in love with God, all rights taken from God. So I'm taking my rights as a child has over its father because I'm now aware that I'm not a subservient being to this world. I'm the ruler, the master of matter, not trying to master anyone else, just trying to become a master of the only thing I can become a master of, me. And so this mastery, which is such a beautiful state of being because nothing can, you're not in fear of being controlled, and also you're not trying to control anyone. The master has now been revealed through Baba. The master is revealed, the master of this world, which is a deity in exile because we were elevated souls and we're becoming that once more. So hum. So you're moving away from that consciousness of the body. Souls have left this path, but why did they leave this path? Purely because they didn't understand the first lesson. And that's the reality, is the first lesson is the last lesson, becoming soul conscious, realizing the self to be a soul. Whatever teachings come to me after that, they don't really matter to me. The only thing I needed to know is that I was once perfect. I was in a perfect world, on a perfect planet, in a perfect place. I deteriorated, I became contaminated, and now it's up to me to decontaminate, to take out the silver from the gold, remove the alloy from the gold, and become divine again. Becoming perfect isn't an ego trip, it's what you originally were anyway. So you can aim for perfection, but never to have the ego of perfection, because that's the consciousness of the body in which I've slipped back again. And you will slip back again and again. Definitely you will slip back. I'll slip back again and again, because we're carrying body conscious roles within this tiny point of light. I've left the body, but I haven't left body consciousness. The body's not the problem. Body consciousness is the problem. It doesn't allow myself to feel myself. And this is the important thing. When you use thoughts, information to acquire feelings, you may get only 1% of your true feeling, if that. But when you use feelings to capture feelings, then that's another story. So you're actually renouncing thinking too much about being the soul and allowing those feelings of freedom, truth, purity and bliss to encompass and encourage and engulf the self, because that's who you are. Anything I'm lacking, I'll try to take it from someone else, and it doesn't work. So, to whoever this has been insightful or helpful towards, fine. If not, set it aside. Don't get too much into what a load of rubbish or how brilliant this is, because both ends of the spectrum are a body conscious state. Because if they are touching you, then it's touching your true divine self, which is who I'm talking to anyway. If it's not touching you, that's your body conscious state that is not touching, and the proof will be a reaction rather than a response. So when I'm constantly listening, I might be listening to another Brahmakumar or Brahmakumari. I might be listening to someone on YouTube that is my brother, is my sister, even though they're not on this path. And the respect for what they believe in is true respect. The respect for them as a family member, rather than when I react with, oh, that's not true, tutting is anger. That's probably why King Tut had anger. So we'll do some meditation to finish off with, and it just struck me that this is such an important subject. The first lesson is the last lesson. Don't move too quickly past it, because the bus is parked there, not anywhere else. Don't go to the next bus stop where there's no bus. So withdrawing from the senses of the body and focusing on the point at the centre of the forehead, a very subtle, tiny, infinitesimal source point of peaceful, eternal, immortal light, feeling separate to the feelings of the body. I feel my energies withdrawing from the body, and the shining star at the centre of the forehead becomes brighter and brighter. My peace, my light, my divinity have been stolen away with the feelings of the body. I am a supersensuous, joyful being. The body I move away from because it is sensual, but no longer essential. I am light, and as light, I choose to be the light of peace, the light of love, or the light of joy. My presence, my origin, my true nature is beautiful, shining, sparkling, and is mine, all mine. Om Shanti.